So back here on the 1978 Toyota pickup, making messes all over the place. Been drilling all kinds of things, cleaning crap up with the wire wheel. Just a big old mess. Had to drill a bunch of holes for things, trying to get the sleeves done, the cross member, all that other stuff. Got about all my grinders just all over the place, die grinder, whatever. Crap all over the floor. So I'll have to do some cleaning here in a little bit because this place is a disaster. So what I'm working on here, so I showed you the cross member that I was working on. I just held it in with clamps, but you see it's all bolted up. I got the mounts in there, all good, finish welded. Let's see if we can get the camera in there. So finish welded around here. So I just had that tacked in place and was, just had everything loosely bolted up, but, everything slid in real good. I mean, it's a bit of a faff to get this in place, and so, the cross member's welded in. It can't go anywhere. So I use the transmission jack. It's not hooked onto it right now, but what I do is I jack the transmission up to give me the space that I need. And then after I got the transmission jack pushed up where the transmission is above, then I can get this piece loosely bolted on. And then when that's loosely bolted on, I can slide the bolts through, the motor mounts, transmission mounts. I get all that sort of like, loosely held in place. Then I'll lower the transmission jack and then screw this in tight so this piece gets in first. I'm doing that because the transmission's aluminum, and I showed you before I already had to repair a couple of the threads with those helicoils, and so what I don't want to do is get everything else tight and then tighten the bolts for the transmission last. So I do those first while these ones are still loose, and then make sure it's all set down, and then I can torque these down. These are big old gnarly bolts, and so like those, if I got to cinch or do whatever, these are totally fine. So that's looking good. I did a pretty good job of level here. So, it's on a lift, so it's not perfectly level. And so my transmission cross member is at, 4 degrees. Like I said, it's up in the air on a lift. And so, half a degree out of level is fine. I'm not worried about that. And then if I look at my cross member that I installed before, I'm at like 0.5, and there's 0.4. So it's super parallel with the cross member in the front. So they're like perfectly parallel with each other, which is cool. Because when I set this up, I took forever in order to get the frame level and everything else level. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to base everything off of this front cross member that I made, because I know this is in the right spot. And so what I'm trying to do is make sure that if this is in the right spot and I can make the transmission parallel to it, then I know the transmission one's in a good place as well. So that's cool. That looks good. This has settled down a little bit. It'll settle down a bit more, but you can see that I'm at like right at 3 degrees pinion angle, which is good, exactly what I was shooting for. So yeah, I mean, everything's looking pretty good. I got that mount in, I got all that other stuff torqued down, and so this is what it's going to be, which is not too shabby. I mean, it took a long time to think about all the pieces, parts I needed. This especially, like I said, was a bear because of the weird ass angles and the aluminum and all that other stuff. So to try to get a flat surface out of all these weird ass angles and strange crap that's going on, and then I showed you up in here, like there ain't squat for room, and there's 2 bolts like right up next to each other. So like it's a pain in the butt to deal with this. And so, trying to get all those pieces, parts. I mean, this is 3 pieces of metal that all had to like be custom. And what I found out the hard way is these angles are actually not the same. So the angle on the right side is not the same as the angle on the left side, which, when I had this in here before, it was sort of out of cockeyed at a weird angle. I thought, I'd screwed something up. My motor was out of the angle or something. Thought, wow, this is horrible. But it was just because the right side and the left side actually don't even have the same angle. Like, you'd think that they just do 45 degrees, and it ain't that. It's some weird ass angle. It's not even 30 or 60. It's who knows what it is. I didn't put a protractor on it, but it sure as shit wasn't a normal angle, and they weren't the same on either side. So whoever did that, should get punched in the face, because that was terrible. So, I got all that stuff. I got this parallel piece. It's, big, thick, 3/16 angle. I got a bunch of weld all along here, all along the other side, all along the bottom. So, it's welded on both sides. So there's a ton of weld on those little pieces of metal. And so I'm really confident those are going to be fine. These mounts are, I actually drilled out the holes big enough for the mounts where they have a little donut cap on the top of them, and that slides in perfectly into the holes. And then I got big old washers on the top in order to cover the holes. So and then they're even square and even on both sides. So I couldn't be more pleased with the way that turned out. The alignment on it's perfect. It's plumb, it's square, it's level. I sleeved it. You can't really see, which is the point. So underneath these nuts, I drilled out big old holes, which are all those shavings you saw on the other side. Drilled out giant holes, and then sleeved all of those for the bolts, and then actually TIG welded it. And the reason why I TIGged it instead of MIGging is that, with MIG, it puts so much up, got big old fat bead. And so I TIG welded all of these because I knew I needed to grind them flush. So, everything else, when you look at a regular weld on something, and you probably can't see with the crap right there. So when you put a regular weld on something, it's sort of proud of it, and then you can grind it if you want or whatever. Well, I won't bother to grind any of this crap down here. But if you want to get something super smooth, then TIG is definitely a better option for that. So I TIG welded around all of those, ground them smooth, and then so all of those are sleeved. It's probably way over-engineered, if I'm honest, because these are sleeved, the cross member sleeved, the angle and everything. This is burly, so it's probably way over-engineered for anything. But my hope is that someday this sucker will be putting out 400 horsepower. It sure as hell ain't going to do that on day one. And then who knows, if I get into some other kind of racing, maybe, 1JZs can make 600 horsepower, which would be bonkers, but, yeah, so this is going to be perfect for my needs. You could see one spot here where it is open. So, this is 1 3/4, and it's below the frame a little bit. And I don't like that. I don't want to have stuff get in there. You don't like the fact that the bottom of it's not supported. So I made these little plates. And so these little plates are going to go up under here. They'll end up, I got beveled edges on everything. So they're, I'll be able to weld them in place. So they'll sit in here like this. And then they'll take up that last little bit that's below the frame, and then those will get welded all the way around. And then this will provide a little bit of, torsional stiffness. Not a whole lot. More than anything, I just wanted something to cover the bottom. If I was super fancy, I would have cut this piece long and had it stick out further, and then it would have gone underneath the frame a little bit. But you can see with these weird rounded edge, and then it's sort of it's like a C-channel frame that they boxed in, and so it's just sort of would have sucked real bad in order to try to grind that to get it to match up that angle to where I wouldn't have a horrible gap and fill it with weld, and it'd be terrible anyway. Plus, the frame is not straight, and so it's already cut at like an angle. So this piece already sits at like an angle, and so I'd be dealing with that angle and a notch, and that was just gonna suck too bad. So I just made these little plates, and I'm just gonna burn those in real quick. That first weld was god awful. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but got the rest of it done, burned in there. I'm not too worried about too much heat on that. So that's 1/8 inch. That's like 1/2 inch. This is 1/8 inch. You know, the frame ain't going anywhere. This is already welded in on 3 sides. There's just a little bit of weld on the bottom. And then this big old fat piece of metal. Like, I'm not too worried about getting a bunch of heat in there. A lot of times, you know, I'll try to do that kind of stuff slow, but with a big old block piece like this, I'm not worried about it at all. So that's some horrible weld right there. That's for damn sure. I might do some grinding just to clean that up, because that shit sucks. So, all right, well, I'll do the other one. Cool. See you in the next one. Thanks.